Morning, and thank you so much for joining us here on Voice Uganda Radio on this beautiful Sunday day. Whether it's morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you're at, we thank you so much for being a part of the show. Our lights are lit up all over the place, so we know that you are all over the world, especially in our beloved Uganda, listening to the program this morning. So thank you so much for making us a part of your listening day. I have gotten many comments and emails from people about the Wednesday American Connection program. I'm
Mm.
going to be starting back up with that next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. And I'm very excited that I have another American that I'm bringing on board that will be co hosting that program with me. My fellow Ugandans, I tell you, the more Americans we bring on board, the more excited we need to get, because one of the things that happens here in the United States of America is the louder our voices, the more there are, the more attention we get. So we're very excited about that. And I want all of you as Ugandans to be excited about that as well. As always, we have the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, who is on air with us. I'm going to let her say hello this morning, and we're going to go right into the program. Good morning, Mrs. Bakoko.
Oh, good morning, Miss Brenda. Hello, listeners. As always, it's a blessing to start our Sunday with you, and it's priceless. It's priceless.
Yes, it is. And we appreciate our audience very much. And thank you so much for all the support you give us here, not only at the Federal Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda, but here at Voice Uganda Radio. Thank you. Thank you. Our sister Dorothy will be joining us a little bit later on this morning in the program. And so whenever she comes in, we will invite her in on the conversation as well. Zoe, we understand and we know that there is a lot of things going on in Uganda right now because we stay abreast to those things. We read the news, we listen to the media, we're trying to find out information at every turn. One of the things you and I discussed this week, and we felt it was very important to start the program out in this way. It may veer off in another direction, but we talked about the youth last week and a lot of the things going on with the youth. One of the things we said, not only as mothers and not only as sisters within the diaspora and within the Ugandan community at home and abroad, the young ones. You know, what are we showing them? What are we teaching them? How are they being affected by all of this? Because one of the things we talk about all the time here on Voice Uganda Radio, in the media, and in everything that comes out, we're talking about the change, looking forward to a new Uganda, moving forward, moving the country forward, working for the Ugandan people to make them whole. But a lot of what the young children are being exposed to is going. It's we have to be careful that we're not feeding our children just physically, but we need to be feeding our children mind, emotional, and spiritually. And these young children are being exposed to some horrific things that are happening. And parents are standing on the sideline all too often watching this happen with their children right there in tow. So let's start the conversation out on that as our role models for these young children. As we talk about change, we need to think about that generation of children coming up as well and what they're being exposed to right now.
Yes, Miss Brenda, thank you very much. This is a very important topic because the young people are the leaders of today and tomorrow. Although people say youth and young people are the leaders of tomorrow, I just want to re-echo what you have said. What are we teaching these young people? They are the leaders of today. They learn from us today so that they can be able to lead the nation. And so I was actually, I had hope this week. I read an article where all the young people came together and they said across the board, we are the young people and we are not going to stand by while our friends are being jailed, while our friends are being suffocated, while our friends are being gagged. We are not going to stand together. This nation belongs to us. We own it. And I was very happy. I read that article. It gave me a lot of hope and courage. And so I think it's very important because what you do as parents is what the children copy. Children learn a lot from us as parents. In the environment, children learn a lot from us. In my language, they say if the parents are thieves, all the children will grow up to become thieves because they think this is a normal thing. And so, for what is happening in Uganda, the corruption, all these lies, people lying through their teeth and looking straight in your face and lying, all these all these tendencies are teaching our children bad, bad moral and ethical values. And I was really happy when the young people are saying, no, we have to reclaim our country, which means they are listening to another silent voice, which is helping them. For 30 years, they have seen nothing which is
Yeah.
good enough for them to replicate. And if these young people are coming out and saying, no, we can't go on, Brenda, we have got to support them because they are the voice which is saying no, we can't do this, in spite
Yes.
of not being having been able to see anything good. Oh my God, I was really, really grateful
Well,
for
because this
the
is
young
the
people coming out.
yeah, because this is not their parents' generation anymore. This is their generation, and they are the ones
Yes.
that are going to become the leaders. It's amazing that they're the ones that are going to have to become the leaders because this is what's going on, Zoe. For all of the time, let's say the past 30 years, you know yourself how much social media has grown in Uganda. And
Mm-hmm.
that social media has tapped the youth into the treatment of the world and how the world lives and how people live in harmony, how governments work, how systems work. They may not be learning a lot of what they need to learn in the schools because of spies and because of other things that the government has put in place to kind of keep control of the people. But the youth are finding a way to get the information, to get the things that they need to get on board to figure out who will help us. Who
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, what would we do without the digital media and, and this generation? Honestly, these young people have their little monies. They put it on their mobile phones. Deep in the villages, they are able to search and they're able to get the information. And that is what it is. And this makes the government fear. Look at this unbelievable report. You saw that tape which was circulating around, Miss Brenda.
Yeah,
How
which
can
tape
a,
was that? Go ahead, and which tape was that?
oh my Lord, the Kaihura Mbabazi tapes where
Oh.
the Inspector General Police was coaching a
Mm.
young youth to talk about against the prime minister, lying to his teeth that he met the archbishop. Can you
Oh.
believe that? The bishop of the Catholic Church, the bishop of the
Oh,
of the
wow.
Anglican Church, that he met them in Mbabazi's, the prime minister's home. How
Mm.
can that happen? These tapes just portray what kind of government we have in Uganda. This is a regime of rogues, of outlaws, people who are living constantly in fear because of their corruption. Honestly, these people don't even deserve to lead a village.
Mm.
You cannot do this to the generation which is you should be handing over the baton to, the young people who are going to be the leaders, and you corrupt their minds like this. And I read the bishop's reactions saying that, please give me the date and time when I was in right honorable Mbabazi's compound. Did you take
Oh, wow.
photos? Can you imagine the humiliation they are putting these religious leaders to? Just like they've been humiliating the Lord Mayor. But the religious leaders who should have respect, honestly,
Yes.
what kind of government is this? The rot is coming out, and now they are spying on each other. Everybody is spying on the other, and this is just a government which is based on fear rather than trust, and they don't have any shared purpose. It's a
Yes.
war all, against all, They do not deserve to govern our country, let alone Uganda. And I think, honestly, I see that government falling apart.
And
It
can I
is
say that
falling apart.
it is falling apart? And can I say this, and you can reiterate on the, comment on this? Where is the respect for the great leaders of the church? I mean, there was a time that you would never utter or say such a thing that was not true, especially of someone of that caliber that's that high in the Catholic Church.
Can you
I mean,
imagine?
Is there no shame?
In the villages, people respect even the catechist, even the deacons. How can you say something like that about the archbishop or the bishop? What kind of person are these? And have you read his latest, after Kaihura is feeling the heat on these tapes. And the next thing I saw today on the red paper was he is warning that the ADF, whom they claim are rebels, are going to attack and start setting fires in schools in central Uganda and eastern Uganda. This is still his intelligence. He's still not ashamed even after his intelligence has been botched with the tapes which have been exposed for the whole world to know. He's still insisting he has another intelligence information that schools are going to be touched. Do you remember Dorothy talking about fires in schools last week?
Yes.
Oh
wow. Explain to my American audience the ADF. Explain that so they'll know what you're talking about there.
These are supposed to be the Allied Democratic Front rebels. They are supposed to be rebels who long time ago, they come through the southwest side. They are supposed to be in Congo. But we know that the Congolese government has really flushed out all these rebels. And so it is just unbelievable. He is trying to divert the attention from these botched tapes, which are circulating everywhere. Now he wants to get the sympathy. They always get the sympathy of the Americans and all these Western countries because they use the rebels as a stick. They dangle that stick to say, oh, we're going to have rebels attacking Uganda. That's how they always get the money coming in.
Yeah, but now the Americans are on board and they're paying attention and they're listening and they're not falling into the entrapment that they used to 10, 20 years ago with Uganda. Because too many people are raising their voices to say, are we the only ones seeing this? Surely our government can't be totally blind to a lot of what's happening. Now, education is a very important thing. Everywhere in the free world, especially in the United States of America, we understand the importance of education because it moves a country forward. So why would that be your first course of action, is to torch the schools?
They have done that before. Dorothy will come and she will talk about this when she phones in. You know the fires in Budo, the fires in the schools in central Uganda where young little kids, young girls were burned to death. And there's even a report where some of the people, like Mirundi, who is an advisor in Museveni in State House, they took away their kids, and that night a fire broke, and children were burned to death. And somebody's like, how did they know that there was gonna be a fire for them to take away their children?
Oh, yeah.
You understand? So
there's a lot
now they are bringing that same thing again. It is just a way of creating fear among the people, and they are going to start banning people's children in school again. Honestly, when will these people have shame and respect for human life and human rights?
It's amazing that whenever they do anything, whenever there's any kind of atrocities or anything that happens in the media or comes out against them, instead of trying to go back into the media to correct it and have an open conversation and allow people to ask questions, they don't do that. They go back into what they know is retaliation. at any
Yes, and
cost.
that they divert the attention by creating something atrocious so that the attention from the media shifts away from what is going on onto that atrocity. And it is just their way of doing things, and I don't know how we are going to handle this, but people need to know that
Mhm.
honestly Ugandans must be ready, and they must know that we cannot be fooled anymore. And many years ago Bob Marley sang and said, you can fool some people sometimes, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. And so this is really, really something which is very, very critical. We have to know these people's tricks so that they are not going to take us off guard. Because when I saw that article, my mind went straight to my sister Dorothy. She's been
Yes.
raising this every week when
Mm.
we have the radio talk show. And now
Yes.
the heat is on Kaihura. And he's there on red paper with all his eyes wide open, warning
Wow.
that there are
Yeah.
going to be fires again in schools in central, which is Buganda, and eastern Uganda.
Wow, we got a
Why?
caller I know we got a caller that wants to talk to you here, so we're going to go ahead and bring him in. Caller, introduce yourself into the Honorable Zoe Bakoko and go ahead with your question.
Yes, good morning, Miss Brenda, and good morning, Honorable Zoe Bakoko. It is a pleasure to hear you coming up on this program, Voice of Uganda Radio. As always, my name is Musana, and I'm calling. I have some certain points that I would like to touch base with. First of all, yes, Honorable Bakoko, you're very, very right that every time there is a scandal, Museveni tries to divert the attention of the scandal to something different because he knows that people are going to be afraid. The rebels are coming. So he's trying to divert the situation, which is very volatile right now, to make sure that people get out from that type of conflict. I mean, that type of innuendos and type of the tape, and then go on something different. You know me, Honorable Bakoko. I'm very, very, very straight. I shoot straight. This is the very same thing that happened when the people were bombed watching soccer. I think this was 2009. 78 people died, lost their lives, and as far as I understand, this is my own personal belief. Otherwise, the government has to prove me wrong. There was a scandal. I mean, Museveni wanted to get money from the West by sending the police, the UPDF to Somalia. And remember, UPDF was sent to Somalia before the West got involved. And Museveni could not get any help. And there is rumor that the government has not, addressed that because Museveni wanted to get financial support from the West. He himself went ahead and bombed the citizens of Uganda watching soccer. This might be very, very radical, but it's the government's responsibility to come and explain to the citizens of Uganda why did Al-Shabaab bomb only once? Only once. What was their aim? If Al-Shabaab was after Uganda for having its troops in Somalia, Uganda has had its troops ever since then and have not had any action. My question is that how come only once that the government of Uganda or the people of Uganda heard from Al-Shabaab? This is the responsibility this government has been doing. All the fires, they do these fires and they come back and say they're going to do investigations. Museveni should release the investigation of the people who were bombed in Lugogo and the other surrounding areas. This is a very, very, very serious charge that Uganda should not take sitting down. Their families died, and this has been happening over and over and over. Recently, they talked about the Chibwedele massacre, where over 1,000 people, 1,000 alleged Ugandans were burnt in the church. We've never had any investigation. The investigation was started. We never had the conclusion of the investigation. We never had the police looking for Chibwedele. asking for Interpol police to go and look for this man. Now, recently, Honorable Bakoko, you mentioned this on this very, very particular voice of Uganda radio about the Chibwere saga some time ago, and all of a sudden, the government of Uganda said they are gonna they're gonna give their report in 3 months, because after we brought this to the voice of Uganda radio, the government of Uganda said, or the Parliament said they are going to investigate and they want the government to bring the report on that type of murder. The fire that took place in the church. Now, excuse me, I'm going too long, but I want to conclude by asking this question. Honorable Bakoko, you've been in civilized countries. You don't even have to be in civilized countries to understand what's going on. I personally have never heard or never seen where over 1,000 people perished in an inferno, and there is no single survivor to go to the hospital. Nobody died outside that church. How can that happen? Over 1,000 people perished in an inferno, and no single survivor that was taken to the hospital. How can that happen? In most cases, if a fire breaks out, a lot of people can survive and later die in the hospital. But this was not the case in Uganda. And we have the police, instead of looking at criminals, the exact criminals, they are after the tapes. And the church leaders, they should stop saying or denying anything. They should say what is wrong supporting Mbabazi, because we are making it a crime to run against Museveni. By the reason that the church leaders coming out and say it's not wrong. I've never done this. It is wrong. They should come out, deny it, and exactly say, even if it was true, I have not committed a crime by supporting another candidate. But by them running away from it, it makes look that it's okay. Nobody should run against Museveni. I know I've taken out of your time, but thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And I'll go ahead and let her answer that. Go ahead, Zoe, and answer that caller.
My brother Musana, it is always a pleasure to have you on Freedom at Hand. Your contribution is just phenomenal, and it is a very important point. Lots of important points that you have raised. And for me, what I know for sure is that Museveni manipulates the issue of terrorism to get Western support. He uses that. But today, as you heard earlier, what Miss Brenda said, most of these Western policymakers now understand who this guy is. We are all, including you, we're educating them. We are talking to them. And now they know that he uses that issue of terrorism to get Western support. He diverts, he uses scandals to divert the heat. For example, right now, as you said, the issue of these tapes circulating in Uganda is putting a lot of heat on him and on his regime. And so, therefore, he is using other methods to try and divert. And they use fires very effectively. You have said it. And the other day, BBC brought out the documentary of the research they did into the Kibwetere scandal. And it is just unbelievable that the Museveni government has never come out with a full report to explain to the people of Uganda and the world who these people are, who were burnt, all those 1,000 people, who were they? Because within the villages of Kanungu, people are not complaining a lot and saying that, oh, I lost my relative. Trust me, I went to Kanungu. And who were these people they burnt in those infernos? Nobody has come to explain who those people are. And that is very, very important. We have got to keep our eyes open, and I know that we are going to deal with this thing. And now, second, the issue of the bombing by the Al-Shabaab. If I remember very well, the U.S. embassies were attacked, I think in the early 2000s. Around 2000, I don't remember the year, 3 or 4. I remember, on the late 90s, Uganda was able to stop that attack on the U.S. embassy in Uganda because they have a good military and they had good intelligence. Not like today where Uganda is just botched on keeping Museveni in power. If they could thwart that, then the only attacks happened in Tanzania, which was not severe, but the Nairobi one was really bad. I remember that very well. And so if Uganda could thwart that at that time, when now Museveni has had a lot of military power that the Lugogo Al-Shabaab could not be thwarted, you begin to ask yourself, are these things real? And you are asking me the question of how people could not survive in the fire in Kanungu. Remember, in the 70s, I was still a student nurse. I remember in Kisenyi when a petrol tanker burst and it went ablaze. That was during Idi Amin's time. So many people died and so many people were burnt, transferred to Mulago, and we nursed those people. Some of them died and some of them survived. So I'm just shocked because at that time, we didn't even have everything. If Idi Amin's government could contain that, can't the Museveni government, which prides itself for being in government for over almost 30 years and having everything, how could it fail even to save one person? And my question again is, who were the people who got burnt in Kanungu? Because nobody in Kanungu tells you that their relative got burnt in Kanungu fire.
Wow, so it's an incident. It's an incident that happened and went totally into silence, like so many things in Uganda does.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. We've got our sister Dorothy joining in here. I think this is her on the line. Hey, come on in and introduce yourself and say good morning.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Brenda, and thank you so much, Honorable Zoe, and to all our listeners, the gentlemen in the studio, and all the previous caller. We appreciate what you are doing. Thank you so much. My name is Dorothy, and I'm going to join the discussion. I have been listening in for at least last half hour, and you have raised very, very important points. So thank you.
Now, Zoe was saying that when you came in, because last week you were very compassionate about the fires and things that happened back then, and Musana just continued on talking about the thousands that died in the church fire, and no one was rescued. Yet Zoe says at a time when Idi Amin was in power, people were brought to the hospital. They may have died in the hospital, but they were at least transported over for some sort of help. Now, one of the things Zoe is saying, because of all these tapes that have come out, the need to set fires again has come up, to set fires in the schools of the young
Yes,
children.
on red paper this morning.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about that, Dorothy? Because Zoe was like, that is where your compassion lies when it comes to these type of things. And you yourself being a nurse, just like Zoe.
Yes, Miss Brenda. Honorable has talked about diversion. Just make people think otherwise. Terrorize them. Fire, I don't know. Honorable Zoe can clarify on this. Because in the history of Uganda, or during Obote or Amin's regime, you can clarify how many times there was a fire in the market. Back then.
None.
Back then, how many such fires?
None.
To this regime, fire is such a tool that it has done harm to the Ugandan people way much you can even think. First of all, fire was on the program to be used to just make people poor. Okay?
Yes.
Even that idea of grabbing people's land, fire was involved in that. People's business would be put to fire. If a big person in the regime wants that building, wants that plot in Kampala, they want that land, all what they have to do is put it on fire. And then they will come and say, oh, you cannot rebuild it because of this ABCD. The next thing you know, your land is gone, your plot is gone. Second reason, these fires, they had to ban the market, they had to ban business. There was a time when they banned business in Chikubo. Prominent big men and women had money, they were scared of them. They just put their businesses on fire. Now they turn to the poor people in the markets. They put those business in fire. One thing, they want a yard, they want that land. Another reason, when the poor Ugandans say enough is enough, they demonstrate, they show up. We have a few examples you have seen. What happened yesterday when Mayor, with the KCC about Mayor Elias Okwag. KCC, they said, oh, we want to clean the city. The people said, this is our city, this is our country. They picked up the brooms, they swept, they protested. What happened the following day? The market was put on fire. They don't have to focus on Museveni and his regime. Now they have to turn around and, being confused, find something to eat. What is the another motive? Okay? I want your land. They put these markets on fire. They put people's business on fire. They go to their banks, Mbabazi's bank, Museveni's bank. They borrow. What do they put there in turn? They give their land. They give them a few months. As they get settled in, trying to see they can start paying back these loans to rescue their land, they come and ban again. Okay?
Wow.
Mrs. Zoe, you saw that article? What happened when Museveni was planning it, when he brought this guy from the ICC or Compo to northern Uganda, trying to revisit what happened. What happened? You saw that fire. What was the intention of that fire? Divert people's attention from the investigations that were coming. He's going to put their market to fire. Now he'll turn around and send them a few, dollars and give them. Now they don't even pay attention. They are happy. This thing is so big, Miss Brenda. You cannot even imagine.
And I
but
think
we have lost.
Yeah, yes. I think Americans can understand that because a lot of time we put our properties or our lands up for collateral on loans. And if the bank wanted that property and they just come and set your property on fire, well, there's investigations in this country that can't happen. But in Uganda, there is nothing to protect the Ugandan people.
There's nothing to protect such a people. And let me tell you, this is a deep, deep, deep discussion in northern Uganda to be able to take away everything people had. The soldiers used to set all those forests. We have a national park which was green. You will enjoy the animals and everything, Miss Brenda. They would set these places on fire, as Dorothy is saying, in pursuit, in quote of the rebels, Konyi. But the entire beauty, the forest, everything was burnt.
Gone. It's gone.
It was gone. And including people were chased into these internally displaced camps, and their homes eventually were all set on fire. They lost everything. It's a tool for disempowering people, making them powerless. And then you have to go down on your knees and start begging. Then Museveni starts dangling his monies in the sacks, which he goes around with, and his brown envelopes at people. And now people are all begging and looking at him. He becomes the savior after he has burnt down your houses, your businesses. They burn down Chikubo. Then he comes around and he's the savior because he has to give them the opportunity to go to borrow in these banks. Can you imagine the kind of people these people are, the kind of person who is leading this country?
Yes, so let's get back to the point in hand then, when we talked about how this affects the children that are going to have to come up and correct all the errors of the past. It's a huge torch for them to carry, because one of the things I want the American audience to understand is this. Ugandans are very hard workers, and the majority of them in the country have become entrepreneurs. They've had to become entrepreneurs because there are no jobs in the country, so they figured out ways in which to provide and take care of their families. And when you have a country that doesn't, in the United States of America and anywhere in the free world, they encourage that. They encourage that, and they want you to grow. Only in Uganda, it is the only country that I know of that your people want to grow and not rely on the government and take care of themselves, yet it's a threat to the government, and they destroy these people, and then they use tactics to continue to keep these people at a level of being on their knees, almost. At a level of being on their knees. How do you feel about that comment, Dorothy?
Miss Brenda, the only way, we have talked about this before, right?
Yes.
These people who are working so hard, you see them in Chisenyi, Honorable Zoe. They are trying to come up with their local saucepans. They are trying, they are doing things, and they are good at what they do. Do you even remember sometime back when they passed a law whereby these people, the blacksmiths, we can call them the blacksmiths, that they couldn't make such saucepans? Those things are very strong. They make those charcoal stoves very beautifully, very strong, but they last long, So Museveni wanted his hand into that little money those people make. Then he passed a law that they cannot do such things anymore because they are blocking the market of the Chinese. Who brings these saucepans? You use it 1 month and it is all gone,
melts.
And
why would
Miss Brenda, people, we are in such a pain.
Yeah, but why would you want the Chinese to come in and have the market on that instead of your own people? I mean, even in any country, it's about the people and the citizens of that country first.
Let me explain, Miss Brenda.
There's no way.
Let me explain a little bit here. Okay, here that's how it goes. In the world of Uganda, the true citizens of Uganda who have a heart for the country of Uganda, the children of Uganda, who love Uganda, in Uganda, they are not supposed to have money. Because if they do have money, that's why the fires, you see them, if they do have money, they are threats to the government. They are going to overthrow Museveni's government. But the Chinese, they are in Uganda to do business. And when time comes around, Museveni has given them all what they want, they're going to support him. They're going to do as he says.
Yes, the money.
So that's why they cannot have any money. They cannot have any business. You see, if this was America, America would be struggling to see how do they invest, how do they promote these people, how do they make better, educate them even to improve on what they are doing. But in Uganda, it is not like that.
Wow.
Yes, Miss Brenda, I just want to compound on what Miss Dorothy has said. It's all about, for Museveni, money is power. Money is power because he knows that people who are independent, who have their own resources, they don't need him. They don't become his slaves. He wants to reduce people to beggars and slaves. And that is what he does. And that's how they do it. They ban all your stuff. Like in northern Uganda, they banned the entire area and pushed people in the camps. And sometimes they would even torch their houses in the camps. So that you become very powerless and they take away everything. I saw a similar policy like this in Congo between the Bahema and the Balendu, where the Bahema encroached on the Balendu until they took away almost all their land. And that is what brought all the confusion in Congo. And so this is what they do. That's what Museveni does best, because he can only thrive by impoverishing the people of Uganda. He knows he has no ethical values, like Professor Mbiru was saying. He has no ethical values, like Professor Ami was saying. He has no moral values, like Professor Mubiru was saying. This is a man who thrives on making sure that the people cannot raise their voices. And so the fires are a tool for him to punish people. It's punishment. It's not just dehumanizing, it's not just disempowering, but punishing people he thinks are opposing him. Just like Dorothy said a few minutes ago, people came out, they were supporting the Lord Mayor, they swept the city clean and they were singing and and the same night the market was up in fire. And you don't have, this is the funniest part and the shame, Why don't you have a fire brigade which can even go and contain these fires? Nothing.
I know.
They don't even have a fire brigade which can go and contain these fires. Look at the fire when the Kabaka trip and program to Kayunga was stopped the first time. Then people were raising their voices and stuff. You touch even places like Kasubi tombs. This is the pride of Uganda. It's not for the Baganda alone.
Yes, and I got another.
It's for the pride of Uganda. That is a tourist attraction. It is a historical attraction for people to go and see. You touch that, then you go to the school, you touch Budo, and you kill the kids. Honestly, fires, and now why is he doing this? What can our young people do? Is this the way to teach the young people to move forward? No.
Exactly. We got a call coming in, and before I take this caller to come in, I want to say this. I have visited some of those tombs and some of those places that are no longer there. The history of it is absolutely gone, and you're right. As tourists coming to that country, those were things that you were drawn to because those were things that you saw were landmarks that you should visit while in the country, and it saddens me that that is a part of history that is totally gone. I only have pictures to remember that landmark by. Musana is coming back in, I think. Here, go ahead with your question to Zoe and Dorothy.
Yes, ladies, thank you so much. I've come back again, not necessarily that I have a question, but I have to make more comments and, follow up on the fires that's raging in Uganda without investigation. First of all, we should understand the history of fires, the history of Museveni. Museveni comes from a family of nomadic people where they graze animals, and if the grass is dry, that grass is torched. They torch the grass so that new grass can come in. These type of fires have been so intense under Museveni's regime. Is this something that was installed in Museveni's brain when he was young, that in order to erase the history or in order to bring something new, you have to torch whatever is in front of you? That's a question. I mean, that's my own personal thought. I'm not saying this is, the way Voice of Uganda Radio thinks, but that is a personal thought, because if we have such things happening and you look at the history of Museveni and these things keep happening, it makes me wonder. Now, I want to our listeners to understand the history of this man. Who is Museveni, and how did Museveni come to be where he is? Museveni, people started getting kidnapped during Idi Amin's regime, and that's a known fact. And in fact, Idi Amin was the first head of state in the entire world to introduce the Commission of Inquiry in 1974. There was no any other known inquiry into the atrocities or killings anywhere in the world. Idi Amin is the one who started this inquiry in 1974, and unfortunately, it never went. It was never concluded. But again, this is the man who wants to find out what was going on in his own regime. Now, you understand that Sam Kutesa, Kahindo Tasiri, and Museveni himself, they were in State Research Bureau under Idi Amin. And every Uganda understand, any Uganda who's in 40s and above, I should say, should understand that State Research Bureau was so notorious in getting people killed. And Museveni was among the people. Museveni was the employee, one of the employees of that State Research. Museveni is the president. He himself has never come out to tell the Ugandan what he knows. What happened during that, when he was in the State Research. He should come out and say, this is what I know about State Research. But the man has kept quiet, and he knows. He called them pigs and swine because of people being killed. And secondly, Museveni himself, when he came to power, he instituted a commission of inquiry to investigate the killings and the abductions that took place until 1986. And that commission of inquiry included Nagenda. He's still alive. Former Attorney General Makuya, they're still alive. That commission of inquiry, I think it was headed by one of the justices that passed away. I forgot his name, Ms. Bakoko, if you know. But that commission of inquiry was instituted by none other than Museveni. And that commission of inquiry was digging too deep in the disappearances and the killings of the people in 1970s under Idi Amin. Museveni stopped that commission of inquiry, and the government of Uganda refused to fund that type of work to go on. And the money came from Ford Institute. Ford gave money to carry on the commission of Ford Foundation gave money to carry on that type of investigation. Museveni killed it. Nagenda is still alive. Chidu Makubi is still alive. They should come out and tell us what happened that commission of inquiry and Museveni instituted. Secondly, I'm asking the government of Uganda, me as Musana alone, I'm asking Museveni, if we here, to come and tell us what happened to Dr. Barrow. We all know Dr. Barrow was shot in his house when he was listening to the news. In the evening, he was killed. And by the way, one of his youngest survivor, his youngest daughter, and his son, they are now working in state house at Entebbe in Uganda. Museveni knows what happened. Kahinda Otafile knows what happened. Sam Kutesa, these are the people that know exactly what happened. We cannot trust this government. We cannot trust whatever they said. Anybody who can go on YouTube, you can find Kahinda Otafile being asked with a straight face that did you use kidogos in your fighting to overthrow the government. Kahinda Otafile was in his office and he was laughing. He denied it through his teeth and said, you know, these are young kidogos. They don't know what they're doing. If someone can deny and you're in a position of power and you deny things that you know happened and you deny things that people can go back and check, how can you trust Museveni? How can you trust Kayihura when they are saying that ADF is coming back to talk to the city? Ladies and gentlemen, get ready because you have a murderous regime on your hands. Museveni must come clean, and anyone who thinks that Museveni is going to give up power willingly, I have news for you. He is not, and they are going to stay in power until Museveni dies. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you.
Wow, that was a lot, but I'm going to let Zoe go ahead and answer in on some of that, and we're going to take a break shortly after that. But Zoe, go ahead and comment to what the caller had to share.
Thank you, Musana. Thank you, my brother. You are always such a valuable contribution to this talk show. I don't know if many of our listeners have been able to access some of the information, of course, by Henry Gombia. If you can read the London Evening Post, there's so much revelation on the killings that have been taking place in Uganda, including that of Andrew Kaira. You can read those articles and just freeze. And just freeze at the kind of ways and methods of how the killings in Uganda have taken place, how they have been able to go to China, get the things that they use, and how people who were involved in even acquiring it, some of them fell victims of the same. It is just amazing. And so Museveni he knows that he can't do this commission of inquiries deeply because they are going to touch him. And I'm very sure that commission of inquiry you are talking about, which he instituted, was deliberately thwarted because he knows that it was going to touch him. And when it got closer to him, that's when, the whole thing had to stop. And I honestly hope that my former colleague, Honorable Kiduma Kubia and Nagenda, will be safe after we are talking about this, because we know what happens in Uganda. It is a very sad thing. that when people know you have information, then they want to silence you. They don't want you to leave. We have seen it with people raising voices. We have seen it with the, as recently with our poor young sister and daughter, Nabenda. We have seen it with so many other people. You just go to the London Evening Post. Henry Gombia is bringing out a lot of that information, and we cannot do. The skeletons are coming out of the closet. The skeletons are coming out of the closet.
Yes, and so it should be. We're going to go ahead and take a break here. You're listening to Freedom at Hand here on Voice Uganda Radio with the Honorable Zoe Bakoko and Dorothy and myself, Miss Brenda. We're going to take a short break, and we will be back in just a moment.
The Uganda American Muslim Association invites you to the 6th annual meeting and conference. It will be held from July 11th, 2014 to July 13th, 2014 in Beltsville, Maryland. For more details, you can visit our website at uwamalink.org or call phone number 301-408-8417. Remember, it's every Muslim's duty to know of the plight of another Muslim. This is an opportunity for you to meet and know fellow Muslims from Uganda living in America.
This is a message from the youth of the United States of America to the youth of Uganda. To the young people of Uganda, rise up and fight for your freedom. Freedom is never given, and Museveni will not give it to you. Because Museveni knows that freedom will choke him. Museveni fears freedom because he knows it is contagious. That is why he fears it so much. That is why he tear gasses you. That is why he uses the army and police. Freedom has become almost extinct in Uganda. But you, the youth, still have hope to save freedom. Our parents, grandparents did not pass freedom to us through bloodstream or genetics. They fought for it, protected it, and then passed it on to us. Fellow Ugandans, expose your deepest fears, because fear has no power. And the fear of dictator Museveni will shrink, and you will be free. Rise up, dear Ugandans. The time is now.
This is Pamela Jenkins from the United States of America. Ugandans, fight for your freedom. You are listening to Voice of Uganda.
To those who fight, and out to those who cry. Because the more you cry, the more your people continue to die. So rise, defend your rights. Yaga, 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 yaga. Why? Give me the man's time. I don't know why the corruption is too much. Yaga, yaga, yaga. Why the price of electricity is too high. Yaga, yaga, yaga. Why the price of education is too high. Yaga, yaga, yaga. And you see the tribalism is too much. I would like to communicate for the things that we have to eliminate. Ignorance and poverty to eradicate. And the whole I get to use them to educate. Yo, don't you try to politicize. Don't think me I try to criticize. No, sensitize me I sensitize. But me know say my people must realize the most important things. To liberty begins in your mindset. To free get up people them must educate. Education expensive to get. It's like you say we carry water in a basket. I don't know why the corruption is too much. Yaga, yaga, yaga. Why the price of electricity too high. Yaga, yaga, yaga. Why the price of education is too high. Yaga, yaga, yaga. And to see the tribalism is too much. And if the mother who made him big, and who was
Thank you so much for coming back for the second hour of Freedom at Hand here at Voice Uganda Radio. The topic has been one that has enlightened a lot of us to a new level of some things that are going on there in Uganda. I have on line with me this morning Madam Dorothy and the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, who are the guests on the show today, and I thank them very much for all of their efforts and all of their input. Ladies, let me pose a question to you, because if we're discussing fires and we're discussing the control of it, and I can understand the control of that, because when you, even in the United States of America, even though you know that there's help right around the corner, fires cripple us, mind, body, soul, and spirit. Before you can even get past how you're going to recover, you suffer through what is happening at the present time. I want to ask the question because Musa and I brought up the question, and you commented on a little, the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, before we went on break. The individual children whose father was killed, and now we know that those children are working in the state house. Is this another tactic? Is this another ploy where children are taken out of some situations when their parents are killed? Now these children are put in a position of loyalty to the government because they don't see what the government just did to their parents, that they killed them, that they set their homes on fire or whatever. What they see is a government that is come to the rescue of them, is protecting them, and now has put them in a position that gives them a level of it gives them a high level over a lot of other people. So they are not looking at the atrocities of what has happened to them. They're looking at the government as their hero, and they do whatever they can to support it, and they fight for it to sometime at the point of losing their own lives. Go ahead and comment on that, Zoe.
Yeah, I was talking, Miss Dorothy and Miss Brenda and listeners, about one of the fires in the schools in Uganda where Mr. Tamale Mirundi had a kid in one of those schools, and he removed his kid that day before the fire, which occurred in the night. And that's where young kids, beautiful girls, were burnt. I think it should be Budo. And my question was, how did he know that there was going to be a fire? He tried to explain, his kid was not feeling well. How many children? I used to have so many kids in boarding school when I had my over 100 children. And these children, even if they were not well, they have school nurses who take care of the kids. So why was his kid so special that he could go and remove his kid and the same night there was a fire? So this issue of fires, as I said, is a very critical issue. And I also remember now that Kaihura is talking about ADF and fires in schools. I remember in Fort Portal, there was a technical school which was set on fire, and many kids got burnt and killed as well. So my question really is, what are these fires, and why do they always relate them to terrorism, to rebellion, to things like that? It is just like we said earlier, they are feeling the heat of these tapes which have really, really exposed who these people are. The tapes, everybody has been reading and watching these tapes, and they are very explosive. They show that we have a regime full of crooks, outlaws, and criminals, because they have to be held to account. How can you coach people, just as I said earlier, talking about a bishop? The next thing you would have heard is the bishop is killed if this was not exposed.
Yes, and the exposure is protecting a lot of people from something that could possibly happen to them if the world wasn't on board and knew of this.
True. And I think people need to talk about these issues, and we really have to talk about these fires, because Museveni and his regime are using fires as a tool to dehumanize the Ugandan people, as a tool to disempower Ugandan people, to impoverish Ugandan people so that they become beggars and slaves to him, and then he can dangle his money in their faces, or they can then become slaves to all these loans. In the free world, people will be so proud to empower entrepreneurs. The government would very, very gladly give them low
interest
profit,
loans.
Loans. So low interest loans, so that they can be able to to grow their businesses. And who doesn't want to have a middle
class society?
A middle class society, which is going to improve your people. You have all these young people. I think it all boils back to the level of unemployment as well, because they know that the youth are 80% are not employed. And now, if the youth catch on this fire, Miss Brenda,
it would be amazing. And Dorothy, I know, and for my American audience, wrap your mind around that. 80% of the youth in Uganda are unemployed. Also, I'm going to probably get a lot of emails on this, because we're talking about it because it's reality, but the American people are going to have a very hard time with the fact that you could have leaders go into a school and set that school on fire, knowing that there are children there. Not only that you go and you take your child out, but what about your child's friends? What about your neighbors whose children go to that school? Can you imagine what has to be in the heart and the mind of an individual to just torch a place knowing that these type of things are going to happen? Dorothy, comment on the conversation on that.
Ms. Brenda, first of all, remember what Mr. Musana said about the fires? Even though, he shared some good picture, okay? Mm-hmm. Because I have come to the conclusion, these people, as we already stated, they use the fire for so many things, but I think also they use it as we saw it at the Kasubi tombs, okay? The tombs were torched. Then, the people of Uganda, Baganda and Uganda, these tombs were for all Ugandans. Tourists, tax came in, people came to see these tombs. So everybody was hurt. But as soon as they were torched, can you imagine, Miss Brenda? Mr. Museveni made sure that he would be the first person on the site. Why? Okay? Mm-hmm. Now I'm turning into to be a typical Muganda here. Why was that very imperative that he had to be on the site? Now, his son Muhoozi Kainerugaba is in control. I'm telling you, they did shoot people. The numbers they are giving, like a 32, whatever, that is nothing. We had people with guns in civilian clothes shooting like crazy. These people didn't do a thing. The only thing we are crying. They were terrified. You touch, then you pour blood, then you sacrifice. It is like a ritual, cleansing of some sort. There's a lot of things going on with this fire. In Ibudo, those younger girls, they were your babies. Someone pick your child the day before. Because the nurses, the teacher called you that the child was sick. And he was so adamant saying that for him, he didn't know the child was sick. He didn't look, but they called her to pick her anyway. But remember, Miss Brenda, those kids were put to fire, but there was a number of them that went missing. They took some of those younger babies alive. Up to this day, we don't know where they are. They were nobodies. They were unaccounted for. Okay?
Wow. Yeah,
so
because
they do a lot of things, yes.
Yes.
Now when we do the ADF, those technical children, this Jamil Mukuru, who they are saying that he is a terrorist, now we have, Museveni knows about the West and the terrorism. Every little thing, you are labeled a terrorist, okay? Then he knows he will get all the kind of the support he needs. He wanted to get in Somalia. They had resisted that. Now, that club had to be bombed. But when we go back to the ADF issue, this man thought that this man to be thriving in Western Uganda, this rebel group to be growing, he figured that the people in that area supported him. What did he do, Ms. Brenda? He put a whole technical school on fire. Because these parents, they are supporting this rebel. Now we go back, whoever said that it is also a punishment, as we have seen already, yes. So many things go along with the fire, yes.
Yeah, because let me just comment on what you're saying, and we'll let Zoe comment on this. Shady Hook was a brutal thing that happened here in the United States of America, where all these young kids were just gunned down in their classrooms. And I think the whole classroom died. America embraced that city. America, people started donating money in. People started giving money towards burying these children, building memorials for these children, making sure the parents had the support and the help that they need. It was all over the news. It was all over the media. People wept and cried. Children in other schools drew little cards and signs to send to that school as support of what had happened to these individuals that were just gunned down for no reason at all. Yet in Uganda, you could have a school. Because understand, my American audience, most of the schools in Uganda are boarding schools. So these children live at these facilities. You could have this type of atrocity happen and the world would be silent, and Uganda would not reach out for the help of the community outside of Uganda to say, look at what has happened to our children. How can we get support from the outside world for what has happened? They can't ask for support, because when they ask for support, everybody's going to ask questions. And the questions would be, let's investigate this. How did this start? Let's go after the people who did this. So the support and help that the families need to overcome and get through this will never be there, because it will expose the government. This is what I'm hearing coming from you two individuals. If we looked at it from an atrocity of that degree that happened in the United States and how this continues to happen in Uganda. Go ahead, Zoe.
Absolutely, Miss Brenda, you have summarized it very well. And, you know, here in this country, they will do everything to support those families. You will even have counselors in school to help the kids when, you know, the other children, the family members, and you keep those children's memories alive. But in Uganda, once the school is touched, all those children are burnt or carried away, like Miss Dorothy was saying. These children, they are forgotten. They are forgotten. Can you imagine what the families are feeling? They are forgotten because no memory, nobody wants to talk about it, because you keep their memory alive. Questions are going to be asked. People are going to demand for investigations. People are going to demand for accountability, even in country. The parents their voices have been shut. I've read articles written by one of the parents of one of those kids from Budo. It breaks your heart, because you just see that he is speaking and nobody is supporting him, not even government. And so I think what Musana's analysis on, you know, people who are attached to fires because they use it for sustenance, you know, from childhood. As they were roaming around with their cattle, they kept on burning, you know, grass so that they can have green grass coming up, sprouting for their animals. And so they have done this. They drive away people who are on their way. I've seen it with the Fulanis in Nigeria. This is a typical trend, which I think there are things we, like Dorothy says, we have our commission of inquiry, which is really going to have to investigate these things post Museveni, because how can the population heal?
Yes. Exactly. How could they heal? I have to share this quick story, and then we'll go to Dorothy. And let those of you know, our audience, we're down to our last hour of the show. For some reason, everybody calls us in the last 15 minutes, and then we're rushed to get through with your questions that you may have for the Honorable Zoe Bakoko. So please, if you want to call in and be a part of the conversation here on Voice Uganda Radio, please feel free to go ahead and call in. This is a thing. I was on vacation in traveling throughout Africa, and we were in Kenya, and we were on safari there in Kenya. And one of the days we were out on Jeep, and I said, what is that smoke coming from over there? Why is there fire? And the driver told us, not knowing that I'd be able to use this someday, but the driver told us we share the animals amongst the countries for safari. And the Tanzania line, where it met with the Kenya line, Kenya wanted those animals over in their territory because that's how they make money on safari. So they set fires, and those fires control the animals and make the animals run into the area that they want it to be, so that they can say they're the capital on the safaris, because the animals are always there, yet they deliberately set the fires to move the herds of animals into their territory. So it's very interesting for me to hear how the government is controlling the people with fires, because in Africa it seems to be a way of controlling things, because this is how we were able to enjoy such a beautiful safari, because they burnt out the line there at Tanzania so that all the animals ran over to where we were at. It's very, very interesting. When I woke up the morning on the marketplace, remember when the marketplace was just set on fire? I woke up the morning that had happened, to all the horrific news of all the Ugandans and everybody around the free world. The torture on these shop owners' faces. People were laying with their face in the sand. People were pulling the sand out of the ground, saying, why and how could this continue to happen to us? These were people who were in an area, as I understood, where there was a better developed mall. And in order to get the business to go over into that direction, these people were just torched. And the fire, there was fire trucks that were deployed to the area, but they came with guns. And they held the people at bay. They would not let the people go in and try to take any of their things. They would not let the people try to help put out the fires. So instead they said we were not able to put the fire out because we were having to control the people. And I'm thinking that does not make sense to me, that the reason you had to control the people is because the people saw you there with guns, keeping them away from their products, and their products were just burning, and you weren't doing anything to save it. And now instead of saying we were not equipped or we set this fire, instead you say when we showed up, the people were rowdy, so we had to come out with machine guns to keep the people under control while the fires burned uncontrollably behind them. How do you even explain that?
Miss Brenda, this has happened in all the places where there's been fires. Everywhere there's a fire, the population wants to help. The fire brigade and the police come, and with the soldiers, instead of helping to stop these fires, they actually go and claim that they are controlling the people. There's no explanation to fit this at all. And by the way, I forgot one thing. Actually, Kasubi Tombs is a UNESCO designated heritage. Can you imagine what level that is? And that with your little mind, you go and touch such a place?
Yes, you'd have to have a small mind to do that, because it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people.
No, because it doesn't. It's a real a world-class heritage, recognized by UNESCO. It belongs to the country, and just because you hate some people or the Kabaka or the Baganda, you just go and touch it. What kind of mind? How small is your mind?
And this is what I love about the youth, because how long will the youth is seeing all of this, and we might be surprised at how much they are growing out of these atrocities rather than being affected by them, because the president wants them to be weakened by what's happening. But I think in the youth, instead of weakening them, he's making them stronger. He may continue to put fear in the older generation to kind of keep them at bay, but the youth are rebelling, and they're rebelling in a great way, because how long can you tell a youth, we're deploying the military because the group was rowdy? They're going to say, what are you talking about? I mean, they're going to start to even ask the question and make the government accountable for what is happening to the people. And I think this is the beautiful thing about the youth and their minds. They don't have the fear that lives in the community of the older generation. Their fear is that if they don't stand up and do something, they're going to become victims just like their parents and their grandparents. What do you say to that, Dorothy?
Exactly, Miss Brenda. That's why that the force that is, let me mention this. You know, when Museveni was struggling to come into power, he knows very well the power of the youth, okay? A lot of people were deployed even from Rwanda, Kenya. The youth were deployed into universities and colleges. And right now, we have a lot of, that's why, the other reason the other day we are wondering why we had so many students and some of them didn't even show up for graduation. Others disappeared maybe to Southern Sudan and whatever, but we have a lot of people who come to study, but they are not students. They are in those colleges and universities for a reason, as we have spies in his classes. So, Museveni know the youth, the power of the youth. That's why the students at Makerere, they raise a little bit like this. The guns for real and the tear gas shows up. No joke. Because he knows what can happen. Okay? He's not stupid. He knows the history. Even here in the United States, you remember the Civil War, the Vietnam War. Who stopped it? Huh? Who said enough was enough? So the power that the government of Uganda applied to the youth is unspeakable. They have suffered a lot. They have suffered the humiliation, but let me tell you, the more he pushes them, sometimes you push until you can't push no more, and I have nowhere to go. I have to turn around and fight for my life.
Yes.
Okay? This is what Museveni is doing. For no reason. They deny them work. The only way he has to control them is send them into battlefields and he be killed. That's why everywhere they are. On graduation day, you congratulate them and you welcome them to the army. What kind of army is that? He's scared of them. If they are not in prisons, they have to go to war to be killed. Because he cannot control them, he has nothing to tell them. Okay? The power applied to the youth is unspeakable. So here where we say that mothers, where are we? What are we telling the children? Are we going to stand on the sideline and let them kill them to extinction? You know, a forest without younger trees is no forest. For how long is it going to hold? I think it is high time we come up in support and favor and directing the youth.
Yeah.
This is no joke.
Yes.
When you hear a whole...
You know, Miss Brenda, I just want to add on to what Miss Dorothy is saying. If you want to see the wrath of mothers, go to the wildlife channel and watch when there's an animal or a bird which has its young ones and a predator is coming to attack. You will see that mother going and dying, taking the bullet for its children. And so for me, I think what is worrying Mr. Museveni, it's not the young people, because he has used the fear element on the old people because we saw the wars. You understand? Because for him, he has been saying, for us now we can sleep. That you people, I brought you sleep. I brought you peace. But the young people did not see that those days where he says there was a lot of problem, part of which, as you heard from Musana, he was in the state research and he was one of those who caused that turmoil. And so he has been dangling that as a fear and mongering to people. If you start it again, there's going to be a war. But these young people don't know war. And so for them, they are looking for their survival. They want freedom. They want jobs.
Yes.
They want to live decent lives. He's not giving it to them. They are trying to speak out for democracy and freedom, and he's shutting them down. Those young people don't know the war he's talking about. They want their freedom, and they are going to fight back. And so that is why this week you saw them coming together, all from opposition, from NRM. They said, our tribe is the young people. We are the youth.
Yes.
And we are not going to be pushed around by this government. We want to talk and we want to speak about who is going to be our next. We want to discuss openly succession. I was very impressed.
I was very impressed too. And Zoe, answer this question for me. In the days of old, when we talk about the ancestry of the Ugandan people, they were not as connected as they are now, because you had villages and you had people all over the place, and you just you weren't as connected as you are now. Now you have a generation of youth that stay in touch by phone, by internet, by Facebook, by all of these things. So when one of their friends come up missing, they know it right away. And they start the conversation. Where is this person? What's going on? When was the last time you seen them? They left to go this place or that place or whatever. That is a huge power that they have on this government, because the days of people disappearing and silencing people when Museveni first came into power, he can no longer control that in the youth, because they stay so connected and because they're starting to ask questions, which is exactly what you just said. They want to be a part of the leadership role of what happens in their government, who gets elected, who gets these positions, and how these people are going to help. I did on the American Connection a while back a show on when Microsoft was looking for a country to go into to make these small little chips that would be put into the computers. And these chips were going to be made in another country because they had to be made in massive amounts, but they had to do it in a place where the countries would still thrive. They could add to the economy, and they could put unemployed African youths to work. Uganda was one of the places they sought after, but because there was so much corruption in Uganda, they took it to South Africa. That Microsoft employed 300 unemployed youth in South Africa making these little chips. Now, these chips, those youth will not make the same money they make in the United States of America doing that. But they have good lives, they have homes, they have cars, they're living a good life because they had this opportunity. These opportunities have been given to the youth in Uganda, but time and time again, the government wants so much to be given to them because of corruption that it continues to hammer on the youth and keep them unemployed. An example, Johns Hopkins University wanted to go into Macquarie University because a student there had come up with an idea on how they could control malaria in the country. Now, malaria is a big problem in Uganda. And Johns Hopkins wanted to come in. They wanted to build onto the school. They wanted to build a better research area there for chemical labs and all of this stuff. They were going to contribute monies to the university to build and make the university whole, because, part of the university is shut down and condemned. They were going to offer scholarships and work with other students that could work with them and implement these programs. They were going to send some of the greatest minds from the United States of America, from Johns Hopkins, to work with these students in Uganda at Macquarie University. And because of the government said all the money had to come through them, and that they would disperse the money out to the university as need be. Johns Hopkins said no, even though they knew that this student was on the brink of something great happening in Uganda. It was all taken away from the youth in Uganda because of corruption. I mean,
you have no idea, Miss Brenda, the missed opportunities Uganda has had because of you just mentioned too. What about the athletes? Many countries you see, sports and athletes, young people who could be coming here for track sponsorships and, all these things. Our kids are missing out on a lot of these things. The exchange programs we used to have, where young people came to this country in senior 3 and then they went back. All these opportunities don't exist anymore because Museveni wants all those opportunities for his own children or kinsmen. You cannot believe how somebody only the level of sectarianism and the level of nepotism is just unbelievable. And so we get all these young people. He doesn't want them to live. It's not about how intelligent you are. Look at his son. Just go to the reports which Henry Gombia is writing. Guy has 40 plus children. Museveni alone, over 40 children, which he has fathered with all these different women, over 40. and his own son, who did not even pass, was sent to all these schools, military schools. Where else could he go? He couldn't go in the academia. If this kid who had developed this control for malaria had been one of his kindred, you would have seen him raising the flag very high. But because this child was probably not one of his own, he could not allow this to happen. And unless he controls the money which is coming in, he cannot allow this to flourish. And so it is a very sad thing. The young people, I'm really happy that the youth are coming together for a common ground, and that we are coming together as the opposition. Everybody is coming together. I saw the opposition had a very successful meeting and rally in Arua just this Friday. So everything is coming in place, Miss Brenda. Everything is coming in place. We should be actually planning, which we have already started planning about post-Museveni, because the guy is going to go.
Yes. And Dorothy, comment on that comment about the children and how they're being, we're not even allowing the children to grow to their full potential under this government, because he continues to hammer at them at every angle.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda and Honorable Bakoko. Sometime back, Ms. Brenda, we talked about drawing a line in the sand.
Yes.
Who gets what and who doesn't? I remember sometime back in 70, he was giving a state address and this budget, and he said that the children of Uganda, the sky was the limit. Really? How could that be? How could that be?
Yeah,
when people have scholarships, when people have people in the United States or Europe to support them, to do everything that they need to do, these are excellent students. And you go and you say, what is your name? Your name speaks everything. And they deny you visa to come. Those programs Madam Makok is speaking about, it has to be them to qualify. If you watch the colleges in here in America alone, and you see what tribes of students on scholarships are here, I will tell you, their faces, they will come out, you will know. If you see students sponsored outside who are going to study about this big oil positions, knowledge that is coming up, how many tribes, how many Ugandan tribes are, there? So you cannot deny the children everything, and then you stand up and you say to the children of Uganda, the sky is the limit. These students, these kids, they have been denied everything. We don't even, they develop education. It just gets them ready to be able, after primary 7, senior 4, to hold a gun and go to war. They just want them a little bit. A little bit.
Yeah, because comment on this is going right where you're going at. The UN, when they looked at the budget for Uganda overall for what would be happening in the country over the year, they said there is growth in the country, but the growth is one-sided. The growth is not as a whole. And if you have one area in Uganda that is growing at a faster rate than any of the rest of the country, if you only look at those numbers, you would say the country is developing and moving forward. But if you break it down into geographical areas within Uganda, you would say the country is still very, very poor and undernourished when you look at it as a whole and not just at one area that's growing. Comment on that, because that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, that's exactly what their master plan is. Okay, if they are determined to erase, okay, because this idea of fire, the tombs and everything, they want certain tribes and certain cultures and gone. Their plan, this Batusi Empire thing, okay, is for them to come forward. Now, they have to groom these children because they have to get good education. They have to get all the qualifications that they need in order to come on top. So, 25 years from now, these people, the rest of the country or the tribes who didn't get a chance, okay, to get the education, to do what? What are they going to do, Miss Brenda? Nothing. This thing is intentional. The line is drawn into, as you know, slave trade here in America, where people are not supposed to teach. You are not supposed to know, because if you knew, you would get smarter and do things better. Exactly, that's what it is. Certain people, they have to get every qualification that they need. They have to be groomed so that in 50 years, when they are planning whatever they want to do by then, they have the power, the qualification, and the control just to do that.
Just to do that, exactly.
Yes.
And so, Zoe, speak on this, because you had children that you adopted in Uganda, and some of those children were from the poor villages. There is a lot of bright children that are sitting on the sand in schoolrooms underneath a tree. And these children are some of the brightest minds in Uganda. China even has a program. Japan has a program. They look for those children. Those children are offered scholarships to go to some of the best schools so that they can become a part of helping economically and helping the country to grow later. I know from everything we've talked about, we understand why this government's not doing that. But this is one of the reasons the youth need to fight right now, because of all of their younger siblings that are sitting under trees. Some of the greatest minds in Uganda. These are bright, bright children. And they're not even being sought out.
You have no idea. Some of those kids whom I picked, I love them to death. My over 100 children, you have no idea. Some of those kids are engineers now. Some of them are doctors now. And some of them are lawyers, teachers, nurses. You cannot health allied professionals. You cannot believe, and many of them will tell you one of them is going to become a priest. And he told me the other day, and he's studying in Tanzania, and he said, "Mommy, if you did not pick me by now, I would probably have been a chicken thief." Wow. He's studying in a university in Tanzania, and he's gonna become a Catholic priest.
Let me say this. I want you to keep talking about this, but I want to say this. If you go out and you Google Zoe Bokoko, you can see a piece that Oprah Winfrey did on her. She was selected through Oprah Winfrey as mothers that they were looking at around the world. And there is an article out there from the show, a clip from Oprah Winfrey's show when they honored Zoe Bokoko for she had taken children that were, like she's saying, were thrown away children that would not have amounted to anything. And these are her children that she's sharing with you right now and some of the success that they've had. But I encourage you after this program to go out and Google Zoe Bokoko, and you will see the Oprah Winfrey clip of her out there. Go ahead, Zoe, and tell us some of the other things that some of the children are doing. But that's amazing. The priest.
These children, every child has an opportunity. If it is given love, if it is given the opportunity to education, to good health, just the basic rights. Give the children those basic rights, and you'll see these children grow. And that is the one question many, many times I asked in cabinet. I said, today we are possibly 21 people seated in this cabinet deciding for Uganda because our parents or somebody gave us the opportunity to grow and be nurtured. And so there is no way you are just going to abandon your young people and young generation and say that you don't care about them. It is unbelievable. Museveni wants to rewrite history. If you read even his book, which I did not complete, there's so much crap, a lot of lies, things he's changing. He's changing history, and he thinks that other people who did history before, who wrote books before years and years and years ago, were fools, because that information is there. He's trying to say that the Bachwezi or whoever are the ones who started everything, and he wants to go in this grandiose idea of his, with his 50-year plan, thinking that a particular group of people should be the ones who deserve empowerment. And Dorothy, let me tell you, it's not about the entire Westerners. If you go into the West, you will find very many poor families. very poor families. It is just him and his cronies and his very close people. He's over 40 children. You know, he has over 40 children.
Yes.
Wow.
Fathered by him alone. And all those children have to have jobs. And then they're having their kids and their relatives and whatever. You understand the clan we are talking about. It doesn't involve everybody. All parts of Uganda are very poor. It's him and his cronies who live in the first world, while the rest of Uganda is fourth world and third world. And so how do you expect to stand up with your face straight when the people in the villages are still using little tadumas? You know, tadumas are little tins. They are just these cans. People in the villages make those cans into little lamps, and you put diesel in it to light in the night. Go and buy diesel for 50 cents or 50 cents or 100 shillings Ugandan money, which is
that's a lot of money.
A coin. It's a lot for them. And then you see a woman in the north will sit selling her produce the whole day to get that 50 cents or 100 shillings to be able to buy that diesel, which she will put in that taduma or that little can so that she can light the house. And imagine how she's inhaling that smoke from the diesel, which is burning in the house. You see, there's so when you unpack, the entire thing is just unbelievable how people live in those villages. And you rightly said it, Ugandans have got strength. In spite of all this, they are hardworking people.
Yes. Very hardworking
people. And by the way, right now, Ugandans want to reclaim their country and they will get it back, Dorothy. Forget about those people whom they are giving all these scholarships to, which are actually Museveni's 40 children plus and his relatives. They are not even people from the West. It's not the entire West. Because you go there, you have people who are living in houses, sleeping on banana leaves.
Yeah, and I've experienced that firsthand. It is just amazing. But the people have nothing but love for you if you come to visit and you spend time with them. And these are people who have nothing. I have to share a story. When I was in Uganda, there was a man who, like you were saying, people come with what they have, their gifts, their crafts, things that they're growing. That's how they make money to feed their families at night, to buy charcoal, to buy whatever it is they need. And this older man was sitting there. He was making these cross, and he was making them out of wood, a cross that you wear around your neck. I purchased some of those crosses for him for gifts for people back here in the United States of America. I gave him way more than he asked for those crosses. And this is the reason for this. When I gave that cross to people, they were like, oh, and look how beautiful it is, and it's polished perfectly. And I said, and I stood there and watched him polish this with his hand. These people are not putting these things on a machine and getting it fine and getting it perfect and getting it too. They're doing this with their hands. There's a lot of pride in what they do. A lot of pride. And they're not going to sell you in anywhere in the world. They'll sell you something even if they know it's going to break down on you tomorrow or it's no good. You don't get that from the people of Uganda. They put their heart, their soul into what they're doing and what they're selling, and they sell it for way, way less than what it's worth. That is what I long to save in the country of Uganda. That is the spirit of the Ugandan people that I love, and why it is worth it that we stand behind them as Americans and in the rest of the world to fight for the freedom for these people to enjoy life in the same capacity we do. I did a story on the people of Uganda. If you go back into the history of what's happening right now in Uganda, even all the things that we talked about today on the program, they are living like African Americans, Black Americans in the United States of America. That's how we lived in the 1800s. So to put it in perspective, the way we lived in this country in the United States of America in the 1800s is the way the Ugandan people are living today. They are being tortured. There is still slavery. I mean, you're talking about the youth going out to get jobs. Dorothy and I talked about this on one of our shows. The youth go out to get employment, The company says, we'll try you out for 6 months. If it works out, we'll keep you. If it doesn't, you're no longer employed there. And you have to understand, these people have given 6 months of hard work to this company for the company to say, we don't need you anymore. And what do? They go get another Ugandan and they give them the same story. So they get free labor at the cost of these individuals who had to find their way to work, get there, pour their heart into it, hoping that these people were going to keep them. And in the backs of these people's minds, they never intended to keep these people. And yet you have a government that allows foreigners to come in and treat its people this way, because it's the Chinese and it's the Indians, it's other countries that are coming in, employing these Ugandans and treating them this way. There has to be ethics behind how you allow foreigners to come in and treat the people of Uganda. This is their country, yet they're being treated like they're the slaves in the country and not like this is their country. Somehow we have to give that back to them. I know we're winding down here. We down to our last 15 minutes of the show, so I'm gonna yield over to Dorothy to give her 5 minutes to kind of close out what she had started and what she's talked about and what's on her heart. We'll go on to Zoe, and then I'll close out the program here today. Go ahead, Dorothy, and comment on that and anything else you wish to hear at the last 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda. For Uganda, home sweet home. First of all, we have to understand that freedom does not come free. We have to fight for it. Okay? We have to use all legal possible means possible. We have to be responsible. This is a responsibility. You just no longer look the other way and you say, oh, you know what, that's none of my business. No. It is our business. Uganda is our business. Now, you see the man has paid off the MPs. Now they are backing him to come back again. What about those youth who have been to school? They've been waiting 5, 10, 15 years to get a chance, to get jobs in a position they trained for, and in nothing. So for these reasons, everybody has a home, you have roots, and we should fight to save it as we know it in Uganda. It doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Dorothy, let me interrupt you. Dorothy, let me just interrupt you 1 second. We have a caller coming in. We're going to go ahead and take this caller, and please, my callers, that's why I pleaded at the top of the hour to call in, so we give you the time you need before we start to close out the program. Go ahead, caller, introduce yourself and come on in with your question.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Brenda. This is Mobiru Musoke.
Who is always welcome. Thank you so much for your call in.
I'm sorry I called a little bit late, but I have only 2 points to make. The first one, I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we talked about democracy in Uganda, and I said the mayor's case may, show us whether or not there is rule of law or not. And I think it has. The outcome has vindicated my suspicions. There is no rule of law in Uganda. After the decision against the government, and the government appealed and went straight to the Chief Justice, or acting Chief Justice, whom they knew was a Museveni stooge, and he made a decision in private. He closed doors in his office without even inviting the Lukwago's lawyers to be present. So, and he reversed the decision of the lower court, just like that. And so it's very unfortunate, but it shows how far away we are from enjoying the rule of law in Uganda. The second point, of course, is at the beginning of the show, I think, I don't know whether the Honorable Zoe Bokoko is the one who asked, but the question was, when will these people have shame? and that question has some implications. It's like asking a psychopath when he will stop his abnormal, immoral behavior. It's very difficult for a psychopath to stop the abnormal behavior, because it is a personality defect. The psychopaths hardly can distinguish between right and wrong. They don't have a normal conscience to decide this is wrong, I won't do it, and that's what's going on. You know, what will bring to an end what is going on in Uganda is a crisis, and I think we've reached a point where the crisis is brewing right now. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that inside the regime itself, I think it's cracking down. I think it is coming to an end in one way or another, because all their tricks they've been using are not working anymore. I think you mentioned this interview, this guy who was making allegations about the archbishops and so on. And I think that's an indication that the regime is really cracking, and they are falling apart. Maybe that's my wishful thinking, but I think everything has an end. And in this case, I think Museveni's end is very, very close. Why am I trying to connect the psychopath with Museveni's political behavior? It is because he actually is a psychopath, and his behavior in his tenure shows us, for example, corruption. Museveni regards the corrupt deals as a legitimate way of doing business. That's why there is no control over corruption. His political goals, he sees that his political goal is far more important than anything than the health and the welfare of the people of Uganda. So he will pursue his political goals at any price, and that's again a reflection of a behavior of a psychopath. He doesn't care what happens to other people. He will do whatever he wants, because he sees only his interests as supreme, and that explains Museveni's behavior, military ventures in Congo, in Sudan, in Somalia, his attitude towards Chinese who are destroying the business of the Ugandans, and even more important, I have to mention this one. His behavior much earlier on as FRONASA. We were surprised. I was in Uganda. The Chief Justice all of a sudden is taken and killed. The Vice Chancellor of Makerere University is taken and killed. The Archbishop of Uganda are killed. Well, there must be an explanation for this. These were tricks made by FRONASA infiltrators. They were trying to destroy these people from Tanzania. They were sending letters to these people to implicate them as if they are working together with the FRONASA. And now this is a deceptive politics, which is the worst part of it. So now, if you want to understand Museveni, you have to understand his personality defects, and they are very, very serious. A person who does not care whether other people are killed, he literally sacrificed them just to achieve his political ends, and that it tells you a lot about Museveni, that he would do anything. The assassination of Kairas and all that, that makes sense now when you look at the war picture. So to take to cut a long story short, all I'm trying to say is that Museveni is a very abnormal personality. Eventually, he will collapse, and probably we will achieve a victory. But let me also point out that this does not only exist in underdeveloped countries like Uganda. These personality defects are worldwide. Here in America, there used to be a man called Richard Milhouse Nixon. Nixon was a president. He was a senator first of all, and then he became vice president under Eisenhower, and then he became president. He was defeated by, of course, Kennedy in 1960, and eventually he became president. But his behavior was exactly like that of Museveni. He would do anything. He would go to IRS and get tax defaulters and try to paint them in such a way that they would lose their political careers. And he's the one who organized the break-in in Watergate. And again, you can see a person driven by political goals at any price. So this happens everywhere. And the only difference between the U.S. and Uganda is that in the U.S. they had strong democratic institutions that forced Nixon to resign and go away. We don't have that in Uganda. Hopefully we will sooner than later. So not to use up all your time, I will stop there because there isn't much time. But what I'm sensing today is that Museveni has reached the end because he's damned if he does something. He's damned if he doesn't do it. There is no way going back. I hope that the fellow Ugandans will realize this, and we can mobilize and hopefully bring his regime to an end very, very, very quickly. One example I forgot to mention, but just to illustrate Museveni's behavior. Museveni, when he went to the bush, the reason he gave why he was fighting the bush war was because the elections in 1980 were rigged. And yet Museveni has rigged the elections more than any other leader in Uganda. Is that true? A contradiction? No, it is compatible with his deceptive personality. The man who went to the bush to fight a war because elections had been rigged is the one who has rigged the elections more than any other. In other words, actually, he didn't go to the bush to fight a war because elections had been rigged. It is the other way. He just saw an opportunity to achieve his political goals. Yes. Sorry for rambling so much about this, but I think I want the people to put in a context Museveni's behavior and his personality defect. And he's not alone, as I pointed out. Even the United States had one, like in the name of Richard Milhouse Nixon. So thank you for listening, and I hope the point is driven home.
Yes, go ahead, Zoe, and comment, because I know you always love it when the professor calls in, and he's one of Dorothy's favorites as well.
I'm just very grateful that Professor Muvulu, he always comes in and summarizes for us. And, in our first or second radio show, I spoke about a psychopath and sometimes how they will set your house on fire and jump in the tree and start laughing and say, who set your house on fire? And so, what I don't understand is probably, is Museveni a professed psychopath, or is he someone who is really behaving like a psychopath, but a criminal? Because he has studied the trends of the likes of Nixon, and as you said, he has been planning how he would get into power all along. He spoke about the rigged elections, he spoke about corruption, he spoke about people who have overstayed in power, and he's been the longest person who has overstayed in power in Uganda, aiding up Idi Amin and Obote's first and second regimes combined. And he is the one, as you rightly put, who has rigged elections more than anybody else. And he is also the one whose government is the most corrupt. And so he has not fought the vices he claimed he stood for. And so he really does not have an iota of moral fiber or ethical fiber in himself. All he wants is to stay in power, and he thinks that he can continue forever. But true, with all these things coming out, we now know that the fires have been one of his tools for fighting the people, putting fear in the people of Uganda, to dehumanize them, to punish them, to disempower them, to impoverish them. And so has all these, how he has used and dangled the terrorism to get the ear of the Western government so that they can be sympathetic to him through the bombings which happened in Lugogo and other places. And so for us, with what is happening now, with the cracks which are going on in this government, the government is falling apart. That is a fact. And now we have to plan for a post-Museveni government. It's going to be a huge task. But I think with all the people we have, everybody coming together, with the likes of you, Professor Mbiru, with the likes of Professor Ami, and everybody coming in, I believe that we are going to be able to meet the challenge of a post-Museveni. It's going to be hard, but we are going to be there. We will hold our hands and work together. And as I said, for us, we talk in FUF, we talk about freedom and unity. And you can never win without freedom and unity. If we have freedom in our country and we have unity among ourselves, we are going to be able to develop that country. And I believe in making sure that each region has equitable resources and equal resources to be able to develop it. And I know that country is going to rise again. The Pearl of Africa is going to be called the Pearl of Africa again. The young people are our hope. They are already showing the signs. All we need to do as mothers, as Dorothy said, is to support these children. And the fathers have to come with us. This time there's no saying, you woman, you are spoiling this kid. No. It's time the men hold hands with us and we work together to support our youth. And we, the women, will take the bullet for our children.
Yes,
and it's time we stand firm.
Exactly. I'm going to go ahead. Dorothy, you just have a minute here. Go ahead and say what you'd like to say, and I'll close us out for today.
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Brenda. Thank you so much, Honorable. All our callers, Professor Mbiru, Honorable Bakoko, you've summarized it all. I have nothing to say. If you know the character of the man, you've heard the professor. So we know what we are dealing with. We know what to do. For the mothers, please don't sit back, okay? Every behind those strong men you see, they need support behind. So please, let us join hands and fight for the future of Uganda. Support the children. Tell them what to do. Please. Sweet Home Uganda, we'll take it back, and we are ready. Thank you so much, Miss Brenda, all the listeners, all the callers. We love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the Honorable Zoe Bikoko, who's always a pleasure to have here co-hosting with me and Dorothy here on Freedom at Hand on Voice Uganda Radio. I'm going to close out by saying this, we have to unlearn what has been learned. This man has pushed things into the minds, into the heads of the Ugandan people as the way that they should live their lives and the way that they should move forward. And we have to change the way that they think about themselves, the way they think about the country, and the way they think about each other as a whole. The monies that have been given to the government there in Uganda for support of the people, that now charities are starting to take that monies away. It's very sad and very unfortunate for the Ugandan people who need those fundings. Very, very much. It's time, it's a new land, and it's time to learn a new language. And the language is a tone in which we set here on Voice Uganda Radio. The language is in which you speak and converse with each other on whatever the topics are that you need to share. I thank you so much for being a part of the program here this morning. Thank you so much for letting us come into your homes on this Sunday and be a part of the way you start your day. This is Miss Brenda for Voice Uganda Radio saying thank you so much from the Honorable Zoe Bakoko and Dorothy. God bless you all. Have a great Sunday, and please stay tuned for the next program that's up after us. Thank you so much.